how do we measure bruxism? The dentist essentially said you need to wear a mouth guard for forever, for the rest of your life.
You trade me out of Bruxism.
That was the kind of aha moment.
He's been able to help capture the results of his learnings to help more people.
All of this amazing experience are being put to good use to create that solution. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Zerene podcast. I'm here with Arash Sabet and Steve Sulak, who are my esteemed colleagues at Zerene. And today we're going to be talking about Zerene's data-driven approach that helps to drive results. So Arash and Steve, can you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Arash. I founded Zerene about a year and a half ago. And very excited to work with our team here to deliver something great to our customers who are suffering from bruxism.
Hi, my name's Steve. Just to give a smidge extra background, I met Arash when we were both working at Google X, also called the Moonshot Lab, on a project called Everyday Robots. We were hoping to help people with helper robots. It's all over the news right now. Maybe you've heard of them. Not ours, but just everybody else that's doing it. So we were a little ahead of our time there, but we're hoping to be on time now with Zerene. At that project, we were both working on making sure that we had the best hardware there was for the team to sort of advance the platform and sort of build for the future. And we've brought that sort of expertise with us to this project. So we're hoping to deliver something good that can help people out.
I love it. So basically, you're both geniuses. And to give some more context to those who are watching, Zerene is developing an approach to managing bruxism that is data-driven. So all of this amazing experience that these two gentlemen have are being put to good use to create that solution. Speaking of which, let's get into it and talk a little bit about that. So we know millions of people suffer with bruxism. Bruxism is the tendency to clench and grind your teeth. Some people do it during the day, others do it at night. That's called sleep bruxism. And Arash, I know you were diagnosed at one point with sleep bruxism and just flat out decided that the general treatment plan for that was unacceptable. And you jumped into creating Zerene as a different way to approach this problem. And now some years later, we're at the brink of launching it. It's going to help lots of people. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And also about your experience with Zerene and how you use the data to create results that really made you excited about it.
Yeah, I can share my experience. Thanks, Lauren. So I'm an engineer by training, and so whenever there's an issue, I try to look for the data that's backing it up. And I think some folks out there who suffer from bruxism may be also in that same boat, where they want to see, okay, well, how much am I grinding my teeth, or when am I grinding my teeth? And when I was diagnosed with bruxism, the dentist said, hey, look, your teeth are really worn down for your age. You might want to consider wearing a mouth guard. And so I said, okay, I could wear a mouth guard. I wasn't too enthusiastic about it, but I asked how long do I need to wear the mouth guard? And the dentist essentially said you need to wear a mouth guard for forever, for the rest of your life, and you need to wear every night. And it didn't sit well with me because I didn't have the data to support, was I grinding my teeth? When was I grinding it? How much was I grinding it? And so that the need for having kind of quantitative data to back up the how much how much someone is bruxism is like at the core of Zerene. And that's also the metric therefore we have the metrics to assess whether the use of Zerene helps with bruxism, because we could say before you're grinding your teeth this much, and after training with the Zerene you're grinding your teeth this much. So we've developed in developing Zerene, and within this group we've developed several we've developed the Zerene product, which itself captures your jaw activity, as well as a few other parameters during your night's sleep. And then we're able to look at those data and extract from them certain metrics that we've derived, which we correlate with that amount of jaw activity or amount of grinding or clenching. And so we have these figures of merit that we derive from the data, and then we track those as we take the user through a training protocol to see if they can kind of undo and retrain some of this clenching, grinding behavior.
Love it. And let me just drill down one moment on kind of the state of things as they are generally. The kind of status quo is that I could go to the dentist and be told that I have bruxism and that I should wear a night guard. But generally, I'm not given any sense of how bad the problem is, whether I'm even still actively doing it, and etc. And so what you have done is you've created a way to quantify whether, in fact, we're grinding and clenching our teeth in our sleep, and right, to what degree.
That's right. And in a way that's easy to do and convenient for our users.
Okay, yeah. I love it.
And just to maybe help put that also in context, like, when you put your teeth together, when you bite, you can feel that, right? You feel that pressure. We have nerves that allow us to sense that. That's basically what's at the heart of the device, right? The ability to sense that pressure too. So when you bite, it can feel it. And that's how we can quantify what's actually happening during the night. I'm not too with it in the middle of the night, so it's nice to have a device just there to do the work for me.
Actually, that's a really good point, because part of what's difficult about this is that it's happening when we're asleep. So we don't really have a way to be conscious of what's happening at all. It's why it's considered an involuntary action, because it's happening when we're literally not conscious of it. So that is a great point.
Yeah, unless you've got a partner that's willing to elbow you all night. Not many of us have that.
Partner wants to sleep.
Yeah.
I can mention a few, just a few high level kind of data or metrics that we've discovered that may be something to look at, and that we found help with folks who are training with the Zerene. So one thing we found is that the general premise is that there is a way to retrain folks who are suffering from bruxism or teeth clenching and grinding to not do that at night. And the primary, and as we're talking about here, we don't really have a good awareness of when we're doing that, especially as we're asleep. And most people just don't have a good sense of when they're clenching or grinding their teeth at night. They typically just recognize they have headaches or jaw pain or different kind of aches in the morning. And so the way this device works is it elevates the level of awareness about when we're clenching and grinding our teeth by use of closing the biofeedback loop by a gentle vibration. And so the idea is, if we have some feedback, then we're able to alter our behavior as a reaction to that. So we found that in developing the Zerene protocols and training regimens, that the amount of power that we send to the motor, the vibration motor, to gently alert the user is something that is an important figure of merit, or an important parameter. And that's something that we're looking to optimize for each user and to get them the best results. Also, another thing that we are working on here at Zerene is trying to really quantify, how do we measure bruxism? How do we quantify it? And if you look at the literature, you'll see that there isn't like it's not a unified front as far as like what is considered bruxism and what isn't, what are people measuring exactly. And so what we're trying to do is really develop a big data set of users to kind of try to establish a really strong unified signal for what bruxism may be characterized as. And so we call that here at Zerene a Z-score. And it's kind of it's a parameter that takes into account the amount of biting, like the magnitude of a bite, how hard somebody's biting, as well as how long they're biting throughout the night. And we average that for the number of hours slept, and we develop this Z score. And what's cool about that parameter is that we could compare that across various users to kind of alert them to what may be their kind of bruxing behavior relative to peers, and perhaps more importantly, like how has that score changed with their training, and how it's gone down with their training, and also how it has stayed down post training with Zerene.
Love it. And so, Arash, I wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about how you've been able to use, for instance, the Z-score and other metrics, because I know that you've had experience yourself using the Zerene.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm the first user of Zerene. I've had a lot of experience, and so in a way, it was pathfinding for the project for me. So the way I used the Zerene was initially, and this is kind of how we advocate for its use and training, is that we use it in what we call study mode, which is where there is no feedback. We're just collecting data. And the intent of this mode of operation is for us to gather like a typical night's data for anybody. So in this case, we collected several nights of data for me to kind of get a baseline for how much am I activating my jaw muscles overnight. So we had that data, and then we moved into training. So I used it, and if you look at my data, there's as we're kind of dialing in the parameters, like how much is the motor, like what is the motor power, what is how much do I have to bite down before the feedback starts coming to me. Like if you look at those, it's very clear that at some point I have the motor power at a certain state, and the bite limit at a certain point. The bite limit here is at which point does the feedback start happening. You can see in my data at some point when those parameters are to a degree where they work for me, like my Z-score really drops. And what's exciting is that it drops like precipitously and then stays down for the duration of training. Also excitingly, is that this effect, so we don't want people to have to wear a mouth guard all the time. We want people to be able to use the Zerene and then to be able to not use it for some period of time. And so in my case, you can see from the data that the biting behavior remains down for some number of weeks after training with the Zerene. So in my case, I will likely need to go back and top off occasionally, meaning kind of retrain, make sure that things are not backsliding back to my original behavior. But I would rather wear a mouth guard once a month than have to wear it every night.
I love it. So just to make sure I understood, the Zerene is using a feedback to help make people aware that they are clenching or grinding their teeth as they sleep. And then while still asleep, they're responding to this feedback by relaxing their jaw muscles, right?
Correct.
So what you saw was that when you were just observing yourself in your sleep naturally without any feedback, a certain amount of teeth clenching and grinding was happening. Then you turned on that feedback, and somehow in your sleep, when you were able to manage the feedback in the correct way, somehow in your sleep you were able to reduce the amount that you were clenching and grinding your teeth.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was borne out in the data, not just in how you felt. That's
right. Yeah. So that was the kind of aha moment, is that, gosh, you can actually change behavior the sleeping behavior in this regard. So it was cool to see that reflected in the data. And we see that for within the beta study that we're performing now, is that within the pool of users, most people see an effect, which is really exciting.
Super exciting. And Steve, I know that you're the resident data wizard of Zerene. So, what is your take on this, on the Z-score, and how we've been able to use the data for Arash, to give him a good result with his bruxism?
Yeah, I've been, well, yeah, I first wanted to mention that, I think all of the sort of trailblazing work that Arash has been doing, rolled into more effective training programs for the beta pool. And I think that's why, he's been able to help capture the results of his learnings to help more people improve the condition. And I think, in addition to his sort of personal experiences, there was kind of the software piece that was, making sure we understood the data that the system was providing, so that we could apply it correctly to people to help them on their sort of, bruxism reduction journey. So, what we were doing was, a lot of sort of, if it was a science experiment, you call it running control studies, as we were sleeping, noting what was happening. I was using it too, sort of as a control subject. I haven't been told that I grind my teeth, but I've still been able to measure, my own activity during the night. And that's also a data point that we have to sort of compare to the users that we have available in our pool. And so, it's nice to have those kind of sanity checking moments. But lots of things happen. Like, we've been through multiple iterations of the product. Earlier versions, would sometimes have unusual behaviors. Sometimes the mouth guard can come out. Sometimes people spit it out. Sometimes people get up in the middle of the night and they do a thing. And, all of these are kind of like, muddied up the data picture. So, we put a bunch of effort into trying to find an approach that was robust to these kind of different disturbances, like things that weren't part of the normal sleep pattern, but we wanted to make sure weren't throwing off the Z-score and the other elements. So I think for me, like a lot of Arash's journey was, Arash, tell me what happened. Like I want to make sure we understand this like data pattern, so that when we see it from another user, we'll tell them the right answer. So Arash already described, what the structure of the metric is. We found that one to be sort of the like having the broadest sort of basis or most encompassing of biting behavior. But we looked at other things like, how much do you bite? And, there are lots of different ways you can kind of look at the data. But overall, so far the Z-score seems to be, just sort of the most complete.
I love it. And just for our viewers to know, Steve was referring to our beta pool, which is the fact that we've come so far in this process that we're about ready to launch. But before doing that, we've asked some of your friends and family to try the Zerene themselves, so that we could test not only the device, but also our understanding of the data. And the exciting thing is that thanks to Arash's experience, as Steve was saying, we're able to actually help those people to have very positive results.
Yeah, and I actually, I love that point that you just made. And, it really does take a village to, make a product like this with the intent to kind of help people. And we really appreciated all of the time that like our pre-release, our beta participants have put into making the product better, because we want to help the effect land as broadly as possible. And we need that partnership in order to be successful at that. And and we sort of hope for the same as people adopt the product and start using it post-launch.
Amazing. And that's a perfect segue to the next topic that I wanted to ask you about, which was about beta results of this trial we're doing with our friends and neighbors. Could you talk a little bit about that? Are there any specific cases that we might highlight for people to have an even better understanding about Zerene and about the data and how the data are driving these awesome results? Arash?
Yeah, yeah. As Steve mentioned, we're very lucky to have friends and family and acquaintances that have given us have offered to be kind of early users or beta testers of the Zerene product so that we can learn from their data as well. And so I guess fortunately or maybe unfortunately, a lot of people suffer from nighttime teeth clenching and grinding. And so just by asking around, we found friends and family who have this issue. And so right now we have several dozen people that have offered to help with data collection and use of the Zerene. And so we are working with these participants to learn as much as possible. I can maybe offer an example we can talk about is we'll call this person user star, let's say. Okay, so he's a star. And so this gentleman, is a middle-aged gentleman, and he has been grinding his teeth quite a lot for we would assume much of his life, and the data bears that out. So user star came to the beta study, having a good sense that he does clench and grind his teeth at night. Not really clear how often or to what degree, but fairly confident that he does. And so we crafted a Zerene beta kit for him, and he started using it. And sure enough, the data shows that he does, in fact, grind his teeth. And we were able to present him these data, which wasn't surprising to him, but it was reassuring to know that he wasn't just wearing not a night guard for most of his life without, for a non-existing issue. So in any case, he started using the Zerene, and we showed him the study data indicating that he does clench, and then he proceeded into his study portion, or I mean, pardon me, the training portion of his Zerene use. And this is where we're trying to try different knobs to see what would give him a real market reduction in his clenching. And eventually we got to a point where we found just the right motor power and bite limit that would work for user star, and it was great. So I don't maybe Steve, you may recall the exact figures for what his reduction was during training and post training, but he saw a market improvement, which was exciting, and it was exciting to share that with him as well, the data that is.
Yeah. So maybe quickly I could offer those numbers along with just a little bit of additional detail on sort of what the schedule of Zerene use is for the current people. So we have a period at the beginning, like Arash was saying, where we're kind of determining your biting baseline, which we're quantifying as a Z-score. So user star spent 4 nights for us, giving us data so that we could see what the pre-Zerene sort of behavior was. And in the case of user star, it's pretty consistent. Sometimes we see users that have like good nights and bad nights, but in his case, pretty consistent night to night. And so that sort of told us, okay, we have a pretty good profile of where he's starting from. Let's go over to training. And he then trained for about 2 weeks. It was very interesting. during this period of time, we saw really good initial results, and then over time it sort of started creeping up again. And we sort of attributed that to, it's like it was fresh at the beginning and new, and he got used to it. And that point Arash mentioned was when he suggested an adjustment to the treatment parameters, and then we saw it come back. So it's a little bit dynamic, user responses to the feedback of the device, and that's something that we're learning more about as we go. And after the training completes, we give people a break, say, go back to your normal routine, do whatever you want to do. In a week, we're going to have you use Zerene again, but without feedback, just to see where you're at now. And we do that for a few weeks after to see, if the bite effort, the z-score is staying the same or not. And so then to simplify it, we sort of take that beginning period, we sort of see what the average is, and then we take those later periods and we compare them, and we say, did it drop or did it go up? And we hope to see a drop. So in user Star's case, when we looked at what he was doing before starting using Zerene to when he completed his training, he was doing 90% less bite effort as we sort of look at the metrics. And obviously this was super exciting for us. It was a very strong response. It's kind of what we'd hoped for. So sort of ended up being a little bit of a dream candidate from the pool. And then as we looked at it over the course of the next few weeks, we saw that without feedback, so without the device to guide, like without the the bumper rails in the bowling lane, they were still biting 60% less than they were before using Zerene at all. Now we don't know if this is forever training. The structure of our trial is like a fixed time window. Will it still be there many months from now? We don't know. We're going to be learning that as we take more users along on the journey. But it was a really great result to feature from the beta study so far.
I love it. And Steve, I know in that particular case, it was interesting to see something about user star versus all of the users, both in terms of like the starting point and the ending point. And I think that population data is something with Zerene that we're really looking long-term to leverage in order to create even better and faster results for people. Can you talk a little bit about how the population data can help us?
Yeah, I can give you some early sort of thoughts related to that. I think it's something we're going to learn more about as we get to work with more people. But in this particular user's case, they started very, very high with respect to other users. A lot of they were much more active with their Bruxism than other folks. But as a result of using the device, they still ended up, much like actually better than sort of the average participant, like from the pool. And I don't know, it's interesting. Like we have started to notice sort of like groups like within our users, because you can imagine kind of this out spatially on a graph or whatever, and like based on the z-scores of people, like people sort of fall in different regions. And so as we get to train with more folks, it's likely that we'll be able to like borrow learnings from the people that are adjacent, so that we could steer people onto the best course of treatment. But it relies on us paying close attention to their data, and the users also doing their best to use the device correctly and provide us the feedback that we need, so that as a team we can make it better.
I love it. And I want to ask you guys also, you were mentioning about user star and the part of the training that was kind of after the training, or the part of the beta study that's like after the training, when we check in with them to see, okay, you haven't been using the Zerene, are you still clenching and grinding your teeth less? Could you both talk a little bit more about that part of the study and the data that we see, and kind of your thoughts about what we do with that data? Are we just going to say, well, this data is what it is, or is there something actionable about that part of the data as well?
The data that we garner after the training period is really, it's 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 very important, because we would prefer that users don't have to wear the Zerene every night. People will get benefit by wearing it, but we want them to have the effect even when not using the Zerene. So, this is kind of an active area of investigation for us, just to figure out, okay, well, how long or when should users use the Zerene after they have trained with it? Like, how long can they go without having to reuse it again? What's exciting about this software part of the Zerene is that we can really leverage that to create a customized plan for every user, and so that it's not like a blunt hammer. It's more like it's more of a specialized, targeted approach, so that maybe in the future what we're doing is we're spot checking, and if we see the behavior, the clenching and grinding behavior coming back, we can then administer a training, a short training program there to kind of alleviate or to counteract the behavior, the Bruxing behavior.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just add on to that. The beta study was focused on a particular part of the sort of like product journey that a user needs to go through, right? Like the early days, like how do we get people started? How do we get them onto a new path for their Bruxism? And then there's a whole really long phase after that, which is, how do you stay on that path, and how do you make sure you're having fun as you go through your little hike of life? And so, like how we set goals, like, the user has to incorporate like how they're feeling like when they finish the treatment with like what they want. Like, do I want to see if this could be even better? Am I happy with what I have? Am I happy with things being a little bit less? Like, those are all choices the user gets to make to decide, how often they use Zerene and like what they sort of use it for. I loved a quote from when we were talking with user Star. He said, like, he was feeling a lot better, like he could feel the difference after using it, and he's like, well, you trade me out of Bruxism, right? And we're like, no, like we still see in your data that you're still grinding your teeth, like, but he was like, well, I'm set now, right? Forever. And we're like, well, no, like we don't know that. We're excited you're feeling good, but like I do think it is really important, like over time, to keep measuring it, so that we have the data to back up sort of the feelings of the Bruxian experience, and we will learn more over time, and then hopefully we'll be able to find that optimal amount of time away where you're doing just the right level to maintain whatever behavior people want.
I love that. It really sounds like one of the things this device is doing, and it seems like it was even your intention, Arash, from the beginning, is to give users better choices, and that the data that this device collects helps them make informed decisions based on what their choice is, whether, oh, I'm okay with this level of clenching and grinding in my teeth, and my dentist is okay with it, or no, I want to go for some more training with Zerene and see if I might even get a better result, rather than just taking action and not knowing whether or not it's having any effect, whether or not it's even needed. So it's pretty amazing. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed hearing from these incredible geniuses who are so passionate about helping you to have better outcomes with your teeth grinding and clenching. The exciting news is that Zerene is going to be available for an early release sometime in the autumn of 2024. So please visit our website, zerenelife.com. Sign up for our email updates and you can be among the first to know about. That's going to be a very limited release, which means that we're only able to sell the device to a handful of people. And if you really need a solution to bruxism or looking for a great option, something to try to see if you can get a better result or at least have data to support your suspicions, this could be a great option for you. So visit our website, zerenelife.com, sign up for the email updates, and we'll be excited to welcome you into our community. Thank you, Arash and Steve. You're amazing.
Thanks, Lauren.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.